Hi, thank you so much for tuning in and joining us for our 2020 Morgan James Fall Book Launch. And my name is Jim Howard. I'm the publisher for Morgan James Publishing, and I'm super excited to be here today with three of my favorite authors and MJ family members. Thank you guys for joining us today. You guys are in for a treat. We have with us Tony Gruebl, Jeff Welch, and Bryan Wolbert, and they are the authors of The Red Pill Executive: Transform Operations and Unlock the Potential of Corporate Culture. Guys, thank you for taking the time to jump in here and talk with us today.
Yeah, wonderful, Jim. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks for having us. Yep.
Yeah, and your book touches on so many topics that I think are very pertinent, not just for today with what we see going on in the world, but even before that and after that, where we've seen corporations and companies kind of grow to over the last 10 to 15 years. The direction that your book took, I think, was really, really important. It covered a lot of really, really strong topics. And I encourage everyone watching this, if what you hear today, if it inspires you, and if you think that it's something you need, and I can tell you right now you will, you can pick up a copy of their book anywhere books are sold. So your favorite bookstore, your online locations, your favorite physical bookstore, wherever you want to go get a copy of the book, it's available. So I encourage you to go grab a copy if you haven't already. But today we're going to dive in and just talk a little bit about the book and about what you guys are doing. So the Red Pill Executive, right? One of the things I thought was interesting is you guys use a lot of pop culture analogies. Can you really teach business lessons using pop culture, and why'd you take that approach?
Well, Tony, if you don't mind, I'll jump into kind of some of the brain science behind it, right? Because I mean, you see a lot of the brain science in the book. The thing about using these pop culture movies is that they tie to emotion, right? They elicit images, they elicit history and your experiences, and in the case of the concepts that we're trying to communicate in the book, being able to reference these movies and use them the way that we've done, it just becomes more human. It's storytelling. It's the oldest form of knowledge transfer, much better than reading some dry case studies.
Yeah, frankly, there's a lot of books, Jim, out there about culture. There's a lot of books out there about operations and project management and transformation, but there's not a lot of books out there about the two of them together and the importance of how they work together to make transformation successful in most organizations.
Yeah, and
I think I would add.
Go ahead, Tony.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Go ahead, Bryan. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, the other thing, we talk about pop culture, and we have a lot of movie references in there. And if you look at most business books, they can be kind of dry, as Jeff said, and they're not a lot of fun. And people don't have that much time to read a book. So if they're going to read a business book, it's got to be fun, or they're going to put it down.
Yeah,
perfect.
I don't know that we could write a book that didn't have a little twinkle in our eye and a little bit of humor in it as well. So using pop culture analogies to really drive home the points makes a lot of sense. Jim, I was on a call today with a team who's working with a really tough client, and one of the executive project managers said, I feel like it's every night I respawn after working for this client, right? I take my licks, I go in there the next day, fresh, respawned, just like live, die, repeat. Well, that's exactly why we use those kind of analogies in our book, right? Those kinds of things make the lessons that we're trying to show people very sticky.
Yeah. That's such an important factor. I mean, we can teach, and it may or may not stick. They may or may not learn, but when we can hook it to something that they resonate with, something they've heard before, something that they even use, then we know we've made that connection, and it goes in that much deeper. But your book goes well beyond just fun and pop culture references and things like that. It discusses some pretty hard-hitting topics. I mean, one of them I thought was really strong was this idea that executives need to rewire or rethink, how they approach business and projects. So what's at risk if they don't rewire or rethink how they're handling these things?
The biggest risk in my mind is that they'll continue to go through their daily job with these huge blind spots. You see, there's what we've learned is that at any moment in time, anyone can adopt a new perspective and look at a challenge from a new direction. The real problem is knowing that they even need to do that, right? A lot of executives especially have been very successful. They've gotten to where they get because they've mastered this to an extent and they didn't even know they were doing it, right? Through some of the concepts that we present in the book, you actually become more and more aware that not only you, but geez, you start to look around, you look at your team, they have blind spots too. And when you can start to erase these blind spots, you can start to look at things in different ways all the time. You just come up with much better options for action.
So we started this journey, Jim. It was the book before this. Jeff and I and Bryan started to try to understand why folks in organizations behave the way they do, despite the outcomes. And it was really a mystery for us. And it took a lot of hard-hitting client work to unpack it and discover it. But Jeff also took a parallel journey down into areas of brain science. He learned from Dr. Dan Kahneman. We were big Warren Claff fans. And Simon Sinek is somebody that almost everybody knows about now. And what we try to do is really integrate that into operations. And what popped out was this notion of culture and the cultural blindness that many executives have about their own organization. Sometimes companies see culture as the thing that they are on a very top level, but culture's like an onion. You really got to peel it back. And where you discover where it really exists in an organization is where transformation and technology and projects all intersect. What a company values most turns out to be their culture. And so if you don't see that as an executive, you risk doing the same things that produce the same results and never quite understanding why you can't overcome them.
And I think we see it all the time. I mean, we go into organizations and projects that are in trouble, and many times, you have bright people working on them, and you look and you say, well, why is this organization failing? Why are these projects failing? And a big reason is that people have failed to open their eyes to the importance of culture and how you may need to operate differently in one organization than another, given the culture. And, if you don't understand that, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, and, culture is one of those things that we've all known about. We don't always like to face it. It seems here in the last 10 years or so that word has become really popular, but in reality, it's one of those things that's going to be built for your company, whether you're taking an initiative to build the right kind of culture or not, whether you're focusing on how to develop that kind of culture that you're looking for, what's going to give the best result to the end client or your team or the effectiveness of what you're trying to create. So in the grand scheme of things, culture's fairly important, and you guys touch on that a lot.
And we had a client that spent 10 years building an entire culture around their business just by the kinds of people they hired. They hired people who believed the same things they believed. And one day, about 10 years into that organization, they decided they wanted to transform. They wanted to become way more effective than they ever were. And they stumbled and they stumbled and they stumbled. And we came in and tried to help them with that. And this was the amazing thing. When we reflected back to them what their true culture was and why they couldn't transform because their culture didn't want it and wouldn't allow it, I think it startled them. I think it made them think, wow, this is really a hard thing to do. To do a cultural transformation in a company means that you have to look at why you've hired people over the last 10 or 15 years, right? That's deeply embedded culture in an organization. And most of us who say, well, my culture is an entrepreneurial culture, or we believe in this or we believe in that. That's great. That's a great top story. But your culture is who you hire. And that's the amazing discovery of our book and our practice, honestly. It took years of us hitting our head against the the glass walls of this thing before we actually could see the glass walls. It was quite a journey.
Outstanding. And one more follow up there, and then we'll wrap this up a little bit here. But when it comes to culture, how important do you find the leadership role in driving that culture, keeping the culture in balance, keeping everyone on board, not just bringing the right people in, but setting the right tone for the organization, for the work that goes on, so that from top to bottom, everyone delivers?
Yeah, you see, in our book, what we really focus on is how operations is impacted by culture, right? So it's not a frou-frou book on culture. That's a big, complex topic that a lot smarter people than me can go and deal with. But what we look at, because we've been in a large number of different cultures in very rapid succession, is that if the leader is trying to transform, if that leader is trying to do something that might be like completely transformational or sometimes even just tactical, they'll make plans and operationally they don't get executed, and you have to figure out why. Well, what we've learned is that quite often these leaders will use experience from another culture and try to do something in the new culture, and that doesn't work. They'll try to implement changes that the culture just doesn't value, and there's inherent resistance to something like that happening. So if you're going to make a change, you better have a plan for how the culture is going to react to it. The neatest thing to do, though, is to figure out how to operate within that culture, because changing culture is hard. But if you can see it and you can start to pull the strings on it, then you can start to build plans that navigate around the roadblocks in culture and still allow you to get your things done. That's when an executive can really start to pick up speed and make changes in an organization.
And Jeff, you talked about operating within the culture. I mean, I think it's important also to know that a good leader actually has to understand the culture. You ask, what's the culture like here? And a lot of times you hear something and what you hear is more aspirational than real. There are leaders that are sort of fooling themselves into what they think the culture is or what they want it to be, and they've failed to recognize what it really is, and that's going to cause a problem as well.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing, Jim, when you open your eyes, when an executive opens their eyes to the power of culture in their organization, they can see that they can use that power of their understanding of culture to get stuff done, to get projects executed, to make transformation happen. Agile transformation is a great example of this. There's two parts of it. There's the actual transformation to agility, but there's the agile mindset. And if you don't have both of them, agile transformation doesn't work as well as it could. So how important is it in the scheme of things? I'm pretty sure that it's critical, and that alone will allow us to get better operational performance than we've ever gotten in most organizations.
Yeah, and that's really the red pill, right? So if that's that paradox of choice, do you believe things the way they used to be or the way you aspirationally think they are, or do you take the red pill, start to learn that you need to look at this differently and then be able to see that culture, because that's when it starts to unlock all these new options.
And that the Red Pill Executive is about our journey to see that and get there.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I tell you, man, I am super proud of this book. I think you guys did an incredible job laying it out in a format that people can understand, people can relate to, and that people can leverage. And I think that for me, any book that can accomplish those three things, that's a book that's going to have an impact. And your message and what you guys teach in the book, what you guys do outside of the book, I know is impacting businesses around the world. And everyone watching this, you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner. These things are for you. These topics are for you. I've been in this game for a long time, 30 plus years, building businesses, working with entrepreneurs and working in corporate structure. And I can tell you, every one of you, as you build a business, if you can look at these aspects that these guys talk about in the book in the beginning, you can build a basis for your business, for your direction, for your entrepreneurial effort, right, and build it in such a way that it's successful from the start and for long term. So thank you guys for sharing that journey, sharing your experience, coming together and writing a book. And that's never an easy thing to write a book. but you went through that process, and now the book is out and it's going to have an impact on people. And that's because you guys stuck to it and shared your views. And we certainly appreciate you for that. So if someone's watching this, maybe they've got the book already, maybe they're reading it and they want to connect with you deeper. Maybe they're watching this and they're hearing about the book for the very first time. Where can they reach out, get more information, connect with you, find out more about what you guys are doing?
If they type in redpillexecutive.com and the internet, it'll bring it right to our home site. They can get the book from there, or they can reach out to us as well, redpillexecutive.com. And Jim, I just want to thank you and Morgan James. You guys have been outstanding publishers. I love referring you to other authors. The experience working with Morgan James has been fantastic. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. We certainly appreciate hearing that. But you guys are what make us who we are. And we're super excited to stand behind you guys. And even times like this where we can't meet together and we can't do interviews like we're supposed to, we've got technology to change and do it a different way. So thank you guys for taking the time this morning to talk with us about the book, The Red Pill Executive: Transform Operations and Unlock the Potential of Corporate Culture. And I encourage everyone watching this, reach out to these guys, get involved with what they've got going on, buy their book, read their book, and most importantly, take what you learn and apply it and move yourself forward. You'll be way better because of it. So thank you guys again for taking the time and for being part of our family. And thank everyone for watching this. And we'll see you on our next one.
Our pleasure, Jim. Yeah.
Thanks, Jim.